we were going into people that never that only remember being in their grandparents' garden before they were whipped off to boarding school. You know, I'm first generation of my family that went to a public school on the nation. And to be able to have access to culture and now our foods, and to being able to pass that on to the next generation is really amazing. And dryland farming was Tepary beans are one of the main things, and what I wanted to bring out today was actually tepary beans that grew just on rainwater. Now, these tepary beans now survive the heat of the summer with at most maybe 5 or 6 inches of rain. And through our clay soil, that's very unique and helps retain a lot of the water. It helps these seeds grow. And water, one of the things that does happen too as well, is the squash and the corn. Those are, and actually to have almost the closest original corn that we have in our culture. That corn grows in 60 days, and I timed it. I wanted to see if it was really 60 days, and if we wanted to eat it in the traditional way, it does grow in 60 days. If you want to be more, and if you wanted to save it with seeds, you would have to wait for almost 90 days. But no, the thing is that we have been doing this for decades, more than 2 decades, preserving our traditional seeds, and giving out recipes, giving out seeds, getting people excited about their foods and realizing that it is their foods. It's nobody else. This is something that's not introduced to from a non-native person. These are seeds that have been here for thousands of years. And the oldest tepary bean that they found is more than 3,000 years old. And if you want to trace it back, there's a cultural history, which is the mythology or folk-like tales, or what we call them agadak, the storytelling that we have on mythologies of tepary beans. The tepary beans come from there's a story, there's different versions of, depends on what part of the reservation you come from. There's different versions of that. And one version I can tell you, it's from the sky. And these beans have grown. Now I have been around here for thousands of years, and I have adapted them. And the reason why we should be keep growing them is because they need to adapt to the climate. If you're storing seeds, in a seed vault, and the climates can be very different from the time that it was grown. It's more better to grow them year to year so that they can adapt. And some rainy seasons have been really good to us, and some seasons have been good to us. But the fact that we were able to save seeds, means they can survive. Just like the corn and action. And we have different tepary beans. This is the brown or yellow tepary beans, depends on what variety you have and what color they look like to you. That's another one. And then just to honor our relative that opened up the session, these are actually blue speckled tepary beans that we were able to give, that were given to us from Española in Mexico. And I was actually successfully able to grow them here in the hottest part of the Southwest. And to be able to teach that to the next generation, and to be able to share this with our relatives, and hearing stories about how elders, how seeds travel. Maybe they're finding things in Tucson that come from other tribes, whether it's arrowheads or clothing or basketry or materials that wouldn't necessarily be here are here. No, so there has been a that trade route that has been here that we're discovering and really emphasizing on bringing that back up and connecting to our relatives, like the Hopi, like the Navajo, the Apaches, really supporting each other's and teaching each other's how to move forward in this modern life. Because in a way, most of you guys don't understand around here, and some of you guys will understand, or some people don't see it this way, is that we live two lives. We have this modern life and we have our cultural life. And those lives are different. And sometimes they contradict each other because of our values. And it's really hard and it's difficult because no people are trying to find a way to move forward. And us moving forward is really making access to traditional foods and modernizing them. So we do a cultural way of the foods, and we do a modern version now, like we did. No, we do temporary bean quesadillas. We even had a temporary bean horchata. And really doing that, and then making stews. The gaitza, the 60-day corn is really unique because it does grow in 6 days, but it's not a corn that you eat. It's actually a corn that you roast and you preserve. You preserve those the sweet in the corn, and so by doing that, you're roasting it. You're doing it over a fire and searing in the flavor, and then letting it dry for a couple of days. And after a couple of days, you can ground it up and put it in a stew. So one of the famous things that we like to do is gaitza. Gaitza is typically beans and roasted corn cooked together, made into a soup. Excuse me. Um, so those are just kind of things that we're really putting together, doing the work that we're doing, and really, it's really preserving culture and being able to. And most of this you can find on our social media page, Facebook, Instagram, and see our journey in this and sharing this culture, not just with the outsiders, but with our with the people, and sharing it with other tribes. Being able to traditionally dry squash and preserve it, and being able to tell the story about it and how it's important, and keeping the seeds alive. Well, part of that is our apprenticeship program. We had just graduated 2 apprentices that went almost 2 years, 2 seasons of growing the traditional seeds, and they finally graduated. And they got to learn how to plant the traditional foods, and they part of that training is they grow the traditional foods, they grow non-traditional foods, and they learn how to save, preserve, or process and learn how to have it for sale, or even cook it and take it home to their families. Um, those are the kind of things that we are able to do with the work that we're doing. So please please understand that that there's people on the ground doing the work. And if you want to support them, ask the ground, find out. I'm glad that our apprentices are stepping up, and actually at one point, we're doing all this work. We're actually reaching out to the schools. We're going to the high schools, the school in Aho. We're going to the BIA school on the reservation. We're going to the public school on the reservation. We're going we're we're letting people know what we're doing here, and keeping and let them know that they can support, you can help, and there's opportunities. And one of the things that we're so grateful for is that to be able to do translate, and to be able to open up an Ockham farmers market, and that has its own social media pages too, Facebook and Instagram. But to be able to go to our tribal leaders who have no idea what a farmers market is, no, or just to say it's no, what we call non white Americans, which is no American, which is Italian for Americano. No, and then Autumns took the word Americano and made it American, and that's what we use for what we use on the language for outsiders, so that we continue and to find out that we are creating something for the community, and the fact that we went from 17 vendors to 100 vendors within over a year and a half that come to this farmers market, and the farmers have direct contact to their customers, which normally wouldn't happen in these times. But to be able to do that, and to be able to have more seats given out to the kids and to the community, is make this more unique. And there's all these seats I can take you the whole day, and I could show you everything and what we plant, and it would take a very long time. But to highlight some of the things that Ahasi say is doing for the nation, and being an advocate for empowerment, being an advocate for social justice, really, and food sovereignty, all those, all those things are we're finding out more and more is important to our people. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Nina.
There is so much more to say, and Sterling kind of reminded me, we do usually have a food-based gathering once a year. We try to do it once a year, and we do a lot of workshops. The Tohono O'odham Nation is starting to reopen, and so we always invite you to come see us, spend some time with us. We do have virtual gatherings as well. So come see us, come spend time with us. And we're, for those of you who are just joining, we're Aho Center for Sustainable Agriculture, Native American governed nonprofit working on the Tohono O'odham Nation. And, I opened up with talking about, seed work is food justice work, and it's social justice work. No matter how we do it, no matter whether we think about it or not, we're always handling somebody's seeds, and those seeds do come from somebody. And me being non-native, I have spent more than a decade really trying to figure out, how do I connect to this work? This is my community now. And I'm very grateful to all my mentors and teachers and family members for accepting me. But I'm also very much still aware of my position, my positionality, and the power and privilege that, even though I'm an immigrant, I look like a white person and I'm a female, but I still have power. And we need to think about that, right? Seeds are power too. We talked about food being power, and seeds are power. And we as seed keepers, whether we're Tohono O'odham or you're working somewhere else, and there's amazing efforts going in like Pima County. We have an amazing seed library system in Pima County, which is kind of a county where Tohono O'odham lies. There's amazing, work going on outside of the indigenous communities. And I keep on saying boundaries are artificial, and we have to work together because we share the environment, we share the water, which is precious. Water is everything in the desert. We share the pollinators, we share the air, we are all connected. So, we as seed keepers, we as seed activists, how can we develop our own stance on, what we do and how we do it? And when we're thinking about seeds as power, think about, right? When is it right for non-natives to grow native seeds? When is it right for non-native chefs to use native crops, or, make a career out of it? Or when is it okay for, or how is it okay for non-native organizations to build, their seed banks or their reputation around saving native seeds? And we're hoping that after this session, which is always too short, you walk away with understanding there's a lot of work going on the reservations. and with a kind of question in your mind, how do we together collectively define, what is the right way to collaborate? When is it okay to take, for example, the amazing 60-day corn and, grow it in your own garden? And what practices should you have in that, especially if you're planning to protect the seed or save the seed or give out the seed? We hear of growers who, for example, were selecting the purple color or a rose color from this corn, and there were non-native growers. And how do we view that? How do we think about it? And there's always, it's not maybe so much what we're doing, it's also how we're doing it. There is a way to be, a good ally to native communities. Seeds, just like food, always traveled. So again, making those boundaries is not correct, and none of the indigenous seed keepers really are striving to do that. But we who are not native, and who work with native seeds, how can we be the best allies? That's the expression to use. And one of the things, that is always shared with me is really being conscientious. You have to acknowledge where your seeds come from, where your knowledge comes from. You have to, because these seeds, just like, saying Native American, you're generalizing. Make effort to get to know your tribes. Get to know, the groups within the tribe. Get to know your local names for Native American people. Don't just say Native American. We're talking about the On Autumn right here, or Akimel Autumn, or Hyachet Autumn. So basically, start avoiding those stereotypes of, ecological Indian, or, like, native or tribal. These are people, these are specifics, and make the effort to learn who they are, and make the effort to acknowledge that in your speaking. So tepary beans are not just something general. They do come from a specific village, sometimes specific family. So make an effort like that. So make it specific, and connect back to the community. Make sure that, there's so much language in the general food movement about superfoods and desert adapted crops and all of that. Please know these are somebody's foods, have sustained peoples for hundreds and thousands of years. So don't fall into the fad. And we as growers, we all like to grow different things. Sterling shared how he brought the blue speckled tepary bean from New Mexico, and it's exciting. And talking to the elders, then we learned that there were blue speckled tepary beans here generations ago. So there's always discovery, but stay away from the savior mode, because native people don't need non-native people to save them. Stay away from that, and stay away from, making it exotic, and really think hard on, what does idea. So inclusion, diversity, equity, advocacy mean in your daily work? How are you putting it into practice? Don't just do a check, really think hard. If your organization is preserving indigenous seeds, make sure you have indigenous people on your board, for example, but don't just have them to be a token Indian. Have them really empower them to speak, empower them to make changes, really put inclusion, diversity, equity, and advocacy into practice. And if you are purchase from indigenous or native people first. If you are selling indigenous seeds, and in previous session there was a question around that, if you're selling them, please make sure to try to tie back to indigenous communities. And always be aware of cultural appropriation versus appreciation. If you're growing, the simplest example is if you're growing amazing plot of 60-day corn, please acknowledge whose corn that is. Please acknowledge where it comes from. And please understand your role, not to take anything away from you, but your role is as a steward. They do not belong to you. You are a steward, and you are connected to indigenous community who eats that corn for survival, who needs that corn for other modes of survival like cultural and identity. So, these are not comfortable conversations, but we hope today, and I know we're getting towards the end of the session, I hope today, these are just some examples that I shared. And I always say, if there are, benefits from saving the seeds, indigenous seeds, please make sure they go back to the indigenous community, at least a portion of it. Think about, think about position and power. For example, who asked you to grow that beautiful plot of 60-day corn? Why are you doing it? And when you start with questions like that, it's not comfortable. But we are in this together. And I think in 10 years, when we speak again, well, I hope we speak before that, I hope if we all do this little increments of thinking and self-inquiry and group inquiries, I think in 10 years, we will really be able to move the social equity and seed equity further. So with that, did you want to add anything to that?
No, just it's a hard conversation. Just because a native doesn't say anything doesn't mean it gives you the right to take the information and and if you're pushing to get a yes answer, that's not right. People are very stern and about sharing cultural information. For me, that's I could have gone into every detail about how to grow these steppe beans, but in a way, I have we have workshops and we have outreach that will be able to do that with you if you want to learn those things. But to me, that's your commitment. To me, today is just to share information about who we are and about what CSA is doing, to help not just the Autumn, but also the outsiders, and to be able to have an open dialogue and communication about what this means to everyone and what this is going to look like for the future. And and involve the people, and share resources, and don't take without acknowledging, and don't use Native people to make yourself or your organization better. Always make sure that you circle back to where it started, which is here. It's really unique. It's a very I got to work with people, and people always thought that Arizona, and especially this area, was just sand and cactus, and there was no life around. They thought that was it. Now we are the most diverse desert in the world, and we should be able to take care of it, not demolish it.
I want to make sure I just scroll through the comments, but I don't see really any questions. I don't know if you have a question. Oh, go ahead, Miss Elizabeth.
Hi, Sterling, will you quickly give us an overview of the work you're doing with youth? And is it a mix of boys and girls? How old are they? That kind of, how many?
Unfortunately, we just are starting because the Tohono Nation is sovereign. So we're just now starting to make connections, connections and reconnections to our work on the nation, and off the nation. So
thank you. There is a question about tepary recipes.
And I'm so sorry that our PowerPoint is not working. We can share it with the organizers though. And yes, there are several recipes also on our website, and we're happy to share also. If you shoot us an email, we'll be happy to share as well. Does anybody have any questions or maybe even thoughts? Like, you know, do you find yourself in this space thinking about these kinds of things, or how do you deal with this?
I have a quick question. Thank you so much. This was fantastic, so thoughtful and so impressive. I'm wondering if you have ever considered doing something like the Open Seed Source Initiative, where your seeds have a statement that comes with them saying, you know, we are sharing them, you can share them, but you must always recognize the source and credit the source and not make them so that they can't be shared after you. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll share. We're a part of the Tohono Autumn Seed Keeper circles, and there is conversation with the tribe on how the tribe can protect the seeds, because again, this does not belong to one organization or one farmer. There's many of us out there, and that's our intention as well. We do believe, you know, I agree that advocacy and policy change is important, but also in so many seed circles, the conclusion ends up being, let's just make sure that the seeds are alive, are being grown. You know, in our Gaichiki, we don't have a seed bank to lock the seeds away. We really have a seed bank to just preserve over winter and keep on growing it and giving it out. So we are hoping that the seeds get protected that way as well. But the work that is being done with the other seed keepers on a tribal level, I think that it's exciting times ahead of us. Thank you for your comment, though. Maybe anybody else?
About 10 years ago, I had a chance to go to Peru and see the ancient agricultural like research centers that were up in the Andes. And it was the first time that I even became aware, you know, of how methodical indigenous peoples were in preserving their seeds and continuing different strains. And I'm very excited. I'm new to seed saving, and I'm very excited to hear what's happening in the indigenous communities in this country and how actively pursuing the seed saving that they're doing, and just the education that can be for all of us.
Thank you. And you know, we all make mistakes, and we all hopefully learn from them, and yeah, keep up the good work. And I do see some other questions in the chat. Sorry.
Yeah, I just saw the one, and no, wherever you go, there are native seeds. You just have to find them. Whether you bring them, no, whether you bring them back to your house and grow in your garden, no, they're there. We solely believe that our traditional native seeds, because we're also a brother and sister tribes. We do have the Acknowledgement, the Honor, the Beach Boss people, and part of our reservation is cut off by the Mexican boundary. So part of our octums are in Mexico too as well. So now we solely don't want to be the source of seeds. We really want it to be a distribution model where the way it was back then, octums, had seeds and grew them out. And the fact that, like I said in the beginning, some of our villages are named after the farming techniques or our food and practices, and even the practices that was part of farming really became, seed sources of, well, seed sources. So for us, it's really cool to find out that 10 years ago, we started a school garden, and the people that have graduated or have moved on from the school are taking the seats and doing it in their own communities and really providing that, no, really not providing seats for themselves, but their communities and their families, and and really, that's what we will love to see, that we people are giving back and people are taking their seats in home and growing them, because the environment, if you know about anything about science and the genetics of seeds, it takes on the life of the environment. If these seeds are grown in drought and extreme weathers and they are able to survive, the likely of that's gonna be to for it to survive, it's gonna be higher. In fact, I took terry beans from Espanola, from a high desert, and brought them down to a low desert and found a way for it to grow. It's very unique. So it's always, that's why we're an advocate for saving our own seeds, because they will grow in the environment. Um, if they grow in a very enriched soil, the likely is that they're going to want that. And if you don't supply that with them, and your household, then it's not going to work. And we just keep doing, we're just continuing to repeat the same things over and over again until people get it. And people are getting it. That's what we're starting to see now. And people are starting their own gardens, their own communities, and really advocating for traditional foods to be more available.
And we firmly believe diversity is the way, biological diversity, but we have a few questions in the chat around, what can you do when you're away from home? And, seeds are amazing and they will last for a few years if you store them properly. So I always do encourage you to have your own seeds, even if you right now cannot grow them. But I also, I'm going to put my farmer hat off and put my anthropologist hat on. Make sure you collect the stories. Make sure, even if you're a Navajo in California or you're from Thailand living in the United States, talk to your folks. We learned how important that is. And elders pass on way too early always. Collect the stories. How did they grow them? When do you harvest them? How do you know they're ready? How did they do seed selection? Collect the stories. Spend some time with the elders, relatives, friends, neighbors, and beautiful things can happen too when you basically quiet down and collect those stories, write them down, and then also make sure you involve your children into it, involve your nieces. If you don't have your own, pass on those stories, because just writing them down, just like putting seeds in a vault, is not going to keep it alive. And sometimes we cannot grow. I'm an immigrant, I have studied migrants, and people always carry seeds with them, even if they cannot plant it right here and then. So do not, seeds are long-term thing. Do not think of it, I cannot do it this year or in next year. Seeds do last a long time. We actually had some success even growing terry beans that were out in a broken down house in the middle of the desert, in the heat of the Sonoran Desert for decades, and we were still able to grow them. Seeds are amazing.
So I saw one of the questions, climate change. So the techniques that we do is really I teach a modern way and a traditional way, and those are just ways of doing things. They're not the one's better than the other. And no, I don't really change anything because it really, when I teach and mentor our apprentices, and they now learn these ways, because I want them to know that you can do it multiple ways, and it doesn't always have to be one way or another. No, it's just a different way to grow. And I haven't altered anything other than working with the land, not against the land. No, that with the dryland farming, using the monsoon rains that goes into the field. No, it really becomes something that um, that technique learning that it almost disappeared. Now, 80 years ago when it, or 100 years ago when it was in its prime, no, it no, there was there was techniques here and stuff. Now the practices, and I say stuff, I say cultural practice, but after that, after that forced assimilation into boarding schools and to Western society, and having to find a way to live, because there's no place to learn the things that we are teaching, and all of this is bringing it back to life. And there's new ways and new ways to do things, and we're all learning to do this. And whether it's an old technique or whether it's a new technique with what farmers are starting to discover now and do, it's amazing. And the world is only getting smaller, and there's different ways of growing. So it's really, you know, it's a beautiful thing, and we should be open to that. So as far as climate change, I don't really change much. I really keep things the same. We do drip irrigation, we do dryland farming, which is not rainwater harvesting, but working with the rain and using it to water the field. And you can find this all on our social media pages on what we do. So
I will just build on that. We do hear from some of the other farmers that they are changing the practices because the rains are coming later. They might be planting later, and suddenly the harvest might be happening in December or January for them, when before they were happening September or October. Is it we believe in, of course, in the climate change, but like Sterling was saying, the environment does always change, and because these crops were always grown with the rains whenever they came, we are hoping this is just a momentary practice. We are hoping that these seeds will still be adapted to the heat of the summer, and that they will keep their unique biological features that allow them to grow in 115 desert with the intense sun, and in on 2 to 3 inches of rain. So we are concerned collectively, what do these climate changes in the last 5 to 10 years, what are they going to mean for the resilience of these seeds? But on the other hand, seeds of the Tohono, just like of all the seeds all over the world, have always been adapting. So I guess the main practice we do towards the climate change is to fight the climate change, is to keep growing them year after year after year. And we as an organization, we diversify where and how we grow it. And that's why it's so important also to work with other autumn growers, because they have their own practices as well. Let me see, Miss Elizabeth, am I, or if anybody else has any other questions?
I have a question.
Great.
How you doing? I just want to know, have you guys thought about developing a curriculum for youth on seed preservation, especially for autumn youth? Myself, I work with youth in Hill River, and I think it's very important that they understand, that there's a reason, that Swamba and the hog, there's a reason that's why we're here today, is because of the food we were able to grow a long time ago. And we're still able to grow today. So just kind of, have you guys thought about developing a curriculum for youth, or do you have one yet?
Nice to see you, Andy. We definitely should connect. We have several lesson plans already and several activities, because even though with the COVID, the reservation closed down and a lot of the school activities had to be stopped, we have been doing this work for over 10, 12 years in the schools, all grades. We have a youth internship at this point as well. And in the last year, our youth coordinator, with the help of the interns and farmers, started developing some handouts. So I would love to connect. We would love to connect with you, Andy. We left our emails in the chat, or hit us on social media. And, we would love to hear what you're doing, because, Gila River is a little bit different, and maybe we can talk about some exchanges as well.
Yes, that'd be awesome. Thank you. Definitely be in contact with you.
Excellent. Nice to meet you. Anyone else? This is exciting. Anyone else?
Sego Sewaguego. Hello, everyone. My name is McKay Burley. I'm calling you from Akwesasne. This is traditional Mohawk territory. My job is, right now, we have some grant work for doing some seed library. Last year was our first in our inaugural seed library event. So we're trying to use our public spaces, and I was wondering if you had any advice on like building your network, or people who are interested in participating. We generally see that the community is interested in participating, but sometimes maybe people don't have the resources or the time to be able to participate. I was curious how you try and get more people involved in your projects.
Congratulations on your important work. That's amazing. Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, go for it.
Give yourself time. Just give yourself time. We just participated in an event this year on the Tohono Autumn Nations Rodeo Parade, and we have never seen this much interest. And that's after 10 years plus of work, so almost 20 years of work. And at the beginning, it felt we were, one of the few people crying about this, So give yourself time and think about it in not maybe months or years. And I know grant systems, I mean, it's such a, we live in two worlds too, like we're a native nonprofit, but we have to, apply to the grants and their timelines, but 2 or 3 years, which is what usually grants are not necessarily the timeline that the seed knowledge and the seed movement will catch up. I think one of the things we did well is connect with other organizations in your community that might be doing seed work or food work, but maybe not. Maybe they're the, storytellers or singers, or one of our strong partners is Tohono Autumn Healthcare Services and Healthy Autumn Promotion Program. So connecting with other organizations that are thinking about well-being and cultural preservation, and also, go through their channels to reach people. Being, of course, at all events, we really set out to make sure that these crops become the new normal again, and they're not just eaten at funerals or planted by a few, seed farmers or even organizations of the reservation. We really push them everywhere. Schools are your huge ally. We do believe in raising the next generation of seed keepers. So we start them very young, and all of our events, community events are always child friendly. And then I would say, give freely. Like we always share from seeds to food as well. You know, and I know it's money, but there are also like a lot of people who care for this, right? And I guess one last strategy, you know, that we were able to do from the very beginning with the help of grants was to, you know, people will just get more interested if they have a chance to grow it. And being able to help with people start their own small gardens. I don't even know how many gardens we dug up, you know, personally and through our teams and partners. Just, you know, think about investing some time and funding into that as well. Do you have anything?
If we're in the community, there's, urban Indian, it's really, if you're taking an outside concept that, you learn from the outside brain, and then you have to find a way to communicate it to the people. And it's really something that, in what Nina said, it really does take time, because it does, people may not understand it, and people may not understand what you're doing, but if you show them, or we started Aho CSA in the aspects of creating a just food system for the people, and it really became much more on top of that, and it really started off with relationships that, to people that have personal relationship with food, it really, and seeds and the work and its culture and its practice. And if you didn't grow up in it, then it's harder for you to communicate. But if you grew up on the reservation, or on the nation, then it's more, you have more access. But it doesn't mean that you're not included in the culture. It just means you have to work extra harder. And for us, I really, I'm last in my generation. I can actually say I was born and raised on the reservation. My certificate says the hospital in Sells, Arizona. I have my sister is the only one that wasn't born on the nation. She was born in Tucson. And I am able to work both on and off the reservation, and really all that work built up towards being able to have food for the community, being able to have people say, hey, I tried this and I did it this way, and it was awesome, and it's really unique. But it does take time, and it does take relationship, and and to keep those relationships and to grow more and to bring people together, that's your key, and you have to do it for the right reasons. I grew up in a very traditional, old school way, and some people, even one of my own people, said you're too traditional. And I'm like, well, that's just how I grew up. A lot of the practices and things that I learned came from elders. A lot of the teachings and a lot of the cultural practice came from elders who are no longer here. And at times I wish I was older, because to be able to be there and to learn those things, I wish that they were here, so that they could pass that on. But luckily, I'm able to contact more people and who are helping us in our journey, because they see it's important.
And I guess I'll just build on the concept of a seed library is foreign to the Tohono O'odham culture and also other native cultures, because the way we did it, the way it was done, it was people to people. So when we opened Gaichki, our seed house, we didn't call it a library. We called it a seed house. And we also use a ton of language. Today we didn't really speak autumn in our presentation, but we really, try to talk the language by translating the outside concepts and really, or taking the outside concept and really seeing how can it be built up in the community. And if you're working in your community and you're from your community one way or another, I'm sure you know, or you can ask the elders, how did the seeds travel? How did they get exchanged? I know it's going to be a journey for yourself and your team, but that's what's worth doing. That's what's worth doing. And make it your own. Just like Gaichki, the seed house we have in cells is, uniquely autumn. And I'm sure, I wish you all the success, and I would love to hear more how it goes.
I'll make sure to grab your email, and I can definitely give you some updates along the way. Thank you so much.
You can do it. Have fun too. So we are so over the time, but anyone else has any comments or questions, or even like your own best practice to share? Okay. I know Miss Elizabeth has to go, our co-host. So then, as I said, our emails are in the chat. You can find us on social media or on our website, ahocsa.com. Please don't hesitate to reach back to us, share your stories. We're all in this together, and keep an eye out for our upcoming events and come join us. We would love to learn from you as well.
Thank you all. Thank you for this session, and wish best all for y'all for your practices and for your journey in this life. And give thanks to everyone that has give thanks to everyone. I really appreciate everything and the support that everyone's doing, not just our work but everyone else's work, to create a space for everyone and a safe place for the people. So,
looking forward to working with you all in the future. Take care, everyone.